I'm Suzanne LaGrande, and this is The Imaginary Possible, a show that looks at the captivating potentials and the troubling realities of artificial intelligence. Today, I'm speaking with Gregory McCormick, who is the founder of Brand Build, a one-man marketing agency that helps small and mid-sized businesses become strong, recognizable brands. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
The first question I want to ask you is, how did you discover AI?
It would be more of how do you avoid hearing about AI? So with anybody in the world of marketing is constantly looking at the latest tools, methods, strategies, whatever it is. And so I think a lot of people in marketing heard about the potential of AI very early. Even just the idea that it can lift a little bit off of your shoulders in any regard. So I heard about it first through marketing and mainly through the promises of copywriting is what intrigued me. There were AI tools for art, photography, whatever it is you want to do visually, but that never appealed to me because I always preferred working directly with artists, whereas I did all the writing myself. So when I saw there was potential for tools to make that easier for me, that's when I went towards AI. So I heard about it through marketing.
Being a one-man marketing agency, I imagine that you do a lot of things simultaneously. What were the things that you found that AI might help you with?
Yes, I do way more than maybe is realistic. Often it feels that way. So, well, strange enough, what AI, for lack of a better word, I'm speaking mainly of Chat GPT, language learning models. What it saves the most time with is so I have several clients, and I basically act as a marketing director for each of those businesses. Where I once did it for one business as a marketing director, now I'm doing it for many. And what it helps out with the most is meetings and then translating those meetings into actionable information for me as a marketing director. What that looks like is, have a conversation like this about what's going on currently. Maybe my client's trying to launch a new program or service. So I have all this stuff in my head. I got other clients who are launching other programs. And so I will record this meeting and then it maybe run an hour long. I'll take that meeting, run it through OpenAI's Whisper program, which is the best translating software I've found. That gives me a full transcript. Then I will break that transcript into parts, put that into Chat GPT, and now I can just have a conversation with that transcript, asking directly, like, uh, give me a brief on the most important aspects of this new program for this client, and it will give me a quick brief. Then I can start to actually build a landing page or web page or whatever it is I want out of that transcript using their words. And so it's a way for me to sort of handle a lot of information from different clients at a very efficient rate. I was pulled into it for copywriting. That's not its strong suit for me. It is just managing my business is what I find to be the most useful.
Can you say a little bit about why you don't use it for copyright, even though that was initially what drew you to try it out, it sounds like?
Sure, yeah. Copywriting requires a strong viewpoint, especially if you're writing for a brand. Pick a very famous brand. The most generic examples you can think of would be Apple or Nike. And the most important thing they have is a viewpoint. And ChatGPT, it just lacks any sort of viewpoint. You can try to corral it into having a viewpoint. You'll spend a lot more time trying to make it craft what you want, meaning you already kind of know what to write and what you want. But it often heads towards, in my experience, heads towards salesy, whimsical, cheesy language. And it's like a lattice work of sentences that have no true viewpoint or structure. And so I think a lot of people might be able to spot this now. Like you sent me an article, and I believe one of them was actually written by Chat GPT. It was overly whimsical, and it was uh but that's beside the point. The main reason I don't use it for copywriting is because copywriting requires that viewpoint, and ChatGPT can't offer that. The most it can offer is a copywriter a new viewpoint on sentences, or a new way of structuring sentences that can make me create more creative, but it can't write it for me, in my experience.
It lacks a point of view.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think
And
that's partly because it's a lot of derivative information put together into sentences that appear to make sense, but it's like there's no there.
yes, yeah, I think that's exactly why. I mean, I think the best definition I've heard so far as I understand how these models work, is that it's a language calculator. Like, let's say I'm trying to mimic a famous copywriter just to get ideas, right? Brian Clark is a well-known copywriter online. He's not like a classic copywriter. He's more modern. And you can say, like, well, let's take this in the style of Brian Clark and see how he might write. Well, it's just gonna comb everything it knows about Brian Clark and arrange words or use words that Brian Clark might use and present them in that possible order. But it's dead on the page. It's not Brian Clark, and it's just aligning language in its best guess of what would be next, in the same way that a calculator would put out the logical number that would be next.
I've noticed that myself. I definitely the overly salesy, well, what I call relentlessly upbeat corporate blather is its
Absolutely.
specialty. That thing that you're talking about, that kind of central point of view, how lacking in that it is. Um,
Yeah.
and how you
Like
can
it,
try prompting it in various ways, and the results are usually fairly terrible, in my opinion.
absolutely. Like, if you could personify ChatGPT into the boardroom, and this person is sitting there at the table named ChatGPT, this would be the most annoying coworker you've ever had.
Yes.
It's like uh psychobabble HR speak the safest possible while never saying anything at all.
Yes. Yes. Fiction piece that I'm writing, I had it write a press statement for a crisis. And it did a perfect job of doing the press release statement that, says, we're very sorry. And at this
Oh,
time, blah, 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 like exactly the words that would be used that allowed you to issue an apology without saying anything at all.
that's maybe the best skill it could possibly have, is like press secretary or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Double speak 2.0.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about this thing that I've heard called drift, which is this term that describes how, over time of using something like ChatGPT, it actually becomes, instead of better at answering your questions, it has the opposite effect. It seems as if it's becoming not as efficient, dumber in essence. Have you experienced anything like that?
Yeah, I have. I've experienced that with ChatGPT. One one which is absolutely impressive. I think if you spoke to somebody who does coding, ChatGPT is really impressive for this. And I do use that. So I tend to design in Squarespace websites, and I do a lot of custom code on the back end for my clients. And when I first started using ChatGPT, this was mind blowing. I'm proficient at coding, but I'm not an expert. I could just copy and paste in code I'm struggling with into ChatGPT. This isn't doing what I want it to do, and explain what I want it to do. Like, let's take an example of, I want this button to have this really nice hover effect that it gently raises and drops a crisp shadow behind it. But it's this pace that I wanted to raise. It's glitching out on me. And I've coded it from scratch. I could just copy and paste it into Chat GPT, explain what I'm trying to do, get the code, copy it in, and go, oh my gosh, it works. This normally would have taken me several hours to figure out what am I doing wrong here? Like I said, because I'm not an expert. An expert might be able to glance at this and just solve it. Copy, paste, paste back, it works. Can't believe it. As time has gone by, I've struggled a lot with code. I will copy my code in, paste it, and I will have to go back like this doesn't work and try to explain why it isn't working. And this is what the result is. And it will just keep guessing, keep trying, copy, and I will copy and paste the code in 4 or 5 times, and then eventually just give up and start going through the forums. So I have noticed that because when I first started working with it, I was like, this is changing everything for me. The other thing I've noticed it drift, as you put it, is in copywriting. When I first started using it, I could say reference, let's say David Ogilvy, very famous godfather of marketing. There's his ad writing, but he's also has a lot of memos and books he's written, and he's a very clear writer, especially with when it comes to persuasive writing. So when I first started using it, I could say, write this brief like David Ogilvy would write a memo and get back something that's in the ballpark. And now if I attempt something like that, it will basically attempt the cheesiest ad you've ever heard when it's actually I'm asking it to just write a brief, not an advertisement whatsoever. Explain what happened in this meeting. In this meeting, we were going to revolutionize. It's just it'll just go off on this marketing tangent trying to sell. So I've noticed it in those two areas, code and copy. I can't say it's just been so drastic that it's become useless to me. And I get honestly, it's subtle enough for me to not be able to tell if it's because of my expectations have increased or if it really has become noticeably clunky and worse or dumber, as you put it.
Well, I've noticed, for example, transcribing interviews, I'll go through and I'll ask it to keep all of the original words and simply put it into paragraphs and, correct punctuation, spelling, just so I have a readable document. And I read through it and it's answering questions that I never asked. Somewhere in the middle of it, it's talking about subjects we never talked about. And I did the same thing that you mentioned of trying a couple of different times to get it to just do what I want. And it repeats to the point of it's not usable because I can't trust that I'm actually getting the words of the people that I've interviewed.
Yeah, that is true. That is another one I have noticed.
Yeah.
Actually, is basically a lack of trust. You can actually ask it to quote from a transcript, and my experience is it can't do it.
Yeah.
You are listening to The Imaginary Possible, a show about the captivating potentials and the troubling realities of artificial intelligence today. I'm your host, Suzanne LaGrande, and this is KBOO Community Radio, KBOO 90.7 FM in Portland.
Well, I'm curious, would other people say what we're saying? Would they agree or disagree with this assessment? Because I hear from a lot of people that they're very enthusiastic about the capacities of Chat GPT and all the things that it can do.
Well, I think it is impressive. I don't think there's any way around that. So if it's almost like the early days of the internet. I mean, I remember my first time I experienced the internet was the dial-up era, and then my older brother had a book report, and he got to type in. My dad set all this up. He was a very tech savvy guy, very very early, and my brother typed in Ben Franklin, and then we went away for about an hour and a half until the page loaded, until the search results loaded. And that was still mind blowing, right? Like all this information is coming towards you. And regardless of, we can critique or find its double speak annoyances and all these things. as a minimum, as a magic trick, it's unbelievable. So I think it's hard not to be impressed by it. Uh, we are hard to impress in this era because we get so much incredible technology all of the time. But I think anybody who engages with it, say for the first week, their minds are going to be blown. But as they start to test its limits for practical use, we become unhappy very quickly. And so I do think, to answer your question, I think that generally people are impressed and they're trying to find the limits of how it can help them. But anytime you find yourself questioning whether you're wasting more time on Chat GPT, whether you should I'll just do it myself, or am I actually just wasting more time trying to get this thing to do what I want it to do so I don't have to work? That's not, it's not as powerful as it's sold to be, right? If it was truly AI, we would be like, I can't believe this just did a month's worth of work for me in a minute. It's not like that. It's like, am I wasting my time all week on this thing? Yeah.
Do you think that AI is going to save you time on things that you don't want to do so that you can spend more time doing the things that are creative and that you do want to do?
No, I think that it will increase competition to where we do more work.
Say more about that. How does that work?
It does save me a lot of time, but in order to compete, I have to offer more services, right? I don't have to offer every service. I have to offer what I'm really good at. And so it does save time with some respects, like meeting notes, like I mentioned earlier, briefs, all of that. But I am not only providing marketing direction, strategy, web design, brand design, writing, uh, employee engagement, employee culture, all these things. And AI makes it possible that I can do all these things. However, it's increased work because I can do more now. Bertrand Russell, he wrote he wrote an essay on in praise of idleness. There was a prediction that by this time people would only have to work 4 hours a day or less or something like that because of automation. Well, we all know that has not happened because it just keeps raising, the tide keeps raising, and everybody just worked 4 hours. Of course, we all might wish that to be the case, but it's not how reality plays out. So it allows us to work more, unfortunately.
Wow, that is really ironic, right? Automation actually enables us to have to do more to keep up. There's a lot of hype about AI and how it's going to change everything for the better. And then there's the reality where maybe things aren't quite as easy to work with as maybe it first appeared or as promised. Any thoughts that you have about AI and using it moving forward?
I find myself in a middle territory. On one hand, you have the doomsday. This is we're marching down a terrifying road, which that is obvious that it can go that way, especially considering how a lot of these things came to be. What I mean by that is the intention behind them. Like look at OpenAI. OpenAI starts as a nonprofit meant to mitigate the risks of AI and quickly turns to a for-profit, not only for-profit, but just all out profit. So the intentions behind that's terrifying. However, I can tell it's already been oversold. And so it's hard to tell the difference between what is just overhyped magic trick and if it is actually AGI, if this really is Skynet danger. So I find myself in the middle road of this is human nature playing itself over and over again of our lofty promises of technology changing everything. And the people who are pushing for profit clearly want us to believe that each one of them has the torch of AI, they are holding the way forward. So there is an incentive for them to market themselves and push themselves as having that. I hear a lot of people talk about AI, Sam Altman, founder of AI. I'm often shocked by the lack of philosophy behind these people's viewpoints when they talk about intelligence. Often their view of a human being is something like a wet robot, which is not a very complicated view of intelligence with anybody who spends time with philosophy. And so I don't even know what they're talking about necessarily when they talk about having artificial intelligence, when they have intelligence. Is it something like a human being? Well, to them, if that's their definition of human intelligence, yeah, they'll probably achieve that. But I think they'll quickly find how far away it is from a human being. I believe they'll find the distance between what they conceive of as intelligence and what a human being is capable of and adapting to. But I think the risk that we run from our perspective as a human being is what it will do to us, how it will change how we think, and what parts of our brain will we slowly shut down and outsource to AI. And I do think we know if you don't use your parts of your brain, just like your body, they do become decrepit or weak. And I have noticed myself losing a sense of creativity when it comes to copywriting. If I outsource it more or expect that I can, even if I don't use what it is, but I can expect that I can outsource it, there's a part of me that slowly shuts down, like lights in a warehouse, just shutting down that wing of my mind. I worry that we human beings might slowly stuff ourselves into their definition of intelligence and say, well, it's clearly smarter than us.
How can we be
So,
more like
yeah,
AI?
like I told you that example of that Doctor Who episode where they're on some empty planet, eternally silent planet, and this life form appears on the side of the train, knocking on the side of the train, and then they knock back and it mimics its knock, and slowly it comes inside the train. And when they speak, it repeats exactly what they say until the time between what they say closes and closes until the life form is speaking in the exact same time as them. And then the life form starts to speak first, and then the humans mimic it. And I I think that there's an internal threat of AI. We're always thinking about this Skynet scariness of what it's going to impose or do on us, but there's an internal worry, an internal game, an internal way of navigating AI that I don't think a lot of people have thought about. And I think that's the danger of what it will turn us into more than what it will do to us.
I've been speaking with Gregory McCormick, who is the founder of Brand Built, a marketing agency that helps small and mid-sized businesses become strong, recognizable brands. If people want to find out more about you and your work, where can they go?
They can go to my website, brandbuilt.co.
Great. Well, thank you so much today for being on the Imaginary Possible.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
You're listening to The Imaginary Possible, a show about the captivating potentials and troubling realities of artificial intelligence today. I'm Suzanne LaGrande, and this is KBOO Community Radio, KBOO 90.7 FM in Portland. To listen to this and other episodes of The Imaginary Possible, visit us online at kboo.fm or theimaginarypossible.com. Thanks so much for listening.